Today on Notsam Wrestling, John Cena has made a lot of enemies, not the least of which is CM Punk. Ron Killings is getting his first match since returning to the WWE, and it's going to be against John Cena. The King and the Queen of the Ring tournaments have started to round out enough that we can start to make our picks. The next book in the bloodline is being written, and so much more. This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling, and I will tell you, to me, a 3-hour SmackDown is a lot of time to fill, but it was filled well on Friday night. John Cena, there's a lot, there are a lot of times when John Cena, especially in this heel run, he'll come out and the things that he's saying while they are leading to the match that he's going towards, the character himself of villain John Cena doesn't really develop. He's not developing week to week, and people still sometimes are left with the same questions that they had going in. However, as of now, I would say that SmackDown was one of the better promos from John Cena, and I really hope, while we are counting appearances, that John Cena doesn't get to count SmackDown for twice. I hope the appearance is walking into the building. Because the fact that John Cena came out a second time, it just felt so. To me, this John Cena as a heel has still felt very in control of his situation. Even when a good guy ends up beating him up at the end of a promo, even when a Randy Orton or a Cody Rhodes ends up putting their finisher on Cena at the end of the promo, there is still a degree of control that it feels like John Cena has over everything. And I don't know if we as fans interpret that as the character being in control, or we as fans are looking past that suspension of disbelief and looking at the performer, John Cena, the actual human being, as being in control. But either way, that's how it's felt. I felt like this week was the first time that things started to feel unpredictable with John Cena since the initial heel turn. I would say the end of Elimination Chamber felt unpredictable. And it's interesting because it was a possibility that many going into the Elimination Chamber said this could happen. It was almost like you walked in going, some people thought Cody was going to turn heel. Some people thought Cena was going to turn heel because something had to happen. But it still felt unpredictable when it did finally happen. Since then, there's been anticipation for stuff, but nothing has been, blow you out of the water. I didn't see this coming. And it felt like this week was the first time that character started to become unpredictable. And it felt that way for a couple of reasons. Number one, he didn't seem fully in control of his surroundings. And number two, it seemed like he had enemies. I love when over time a character is held responsible for his actions. I love the last chapter of the Roman Reigns bloodline story. In that book, there are multiple books of bloodline at this point, and I feel like a new book is being started right now with Jacob Fatu. But I love that last sort of, building up to War Games last year and even all the way towards WrestleMania, that Roman as a singles guy, Roman as a babyface, was really still having to pay the consequences for everything that he did as a bad guy, as the leader of the bloodline. For every person that he wronged, the fact that, and everybody around him was paying for those consequences too. The fact that Cody Rhodes can't just team with Roman Reigns because Kevin Owens still hates him, regardless of what Roman Reigns is doing now. Kevin Owens doesn't forgive him for what he did a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it is. He's got to convince Jay to come back over to him because Jay remembers all these people remember. And it makes you feel like the storylines are less disposable. It makes you feel like you're not a fool for paying attention to every detail. And when I was looking at John Cena in the ring, surrounded by Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, LA Knight, eventually R-Truth, CM Punk showed up. Like, you start to realize that John Cena, since, what was it? I mean, maybe the very beginning of, either the end of February, beginning of March, since the Elimination Chamber, John Cena has been building up enemies. March, April, May, June. He spent about 4 months building enemies. And it's starting to feel like the chickens are coming home to roost. You know, up until now, I felt like most of these John Cena stories have almost been singular in nature, right? Like coming off of Elimination Chamber, the story was about John Cena and Cody Rhodes. Coming off of WrestleMania, the story was about John Cena and Randy Orton. As we headed to Saturday night's main event, the story for a week or two was about John Cena and R-Truth. As we go towards Money in the Bank, Cody Rhodes comes back, and now the story is about this tag team of Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso with Logan Paul by John Cena's side. But now, enough has happened, and John Cena has wrestled at every premium live event and Saturday night's main event in the calendar year of 2025. So everything that he's done up until now has counted. Everything counts. And the fact that he wins matches by hitting people with a belt and pinning them, and then goes, okay, we're done here, I'm moving on to the next thing. That's going to work in the short term, but in the long term, no. Everybody's sitting there going, wait a minute, like, I don't think so. I want a rematch. I want to stop you. I have a grudge that I'm holding against you, which is exactly what happened to Roman Reigns when he was cheating to win every match. Eventually, all these people that were cheated out of victories and then Roman moved on to the next person, they didn't move on. You know, they say that you may be done with the past, but the past ain't done with you. And it's not taken John Cena 3 years to figure that out. It's taken him 4 months to start to figure that out. So John Cena comes out. And not only all that, but he makes some clarification on some questions that we've had. John Cena comes out and he says that he's a genius. He says that the reason that he is who he is because he's smarter than everybody else. John Cena says that as far as wrestling's Mount Rushmore goes, he's all 4 faces on that mountain. Now look, I have talked about wrestling's Mount Rushmore before. I think this whole Mount Rushmore conversation is absurd. It's ridiculous. Nobody knows what Mount Rushmore is. Mount Rushmore is not a top 4. Mount Rushmore in the United States, with those 4 presidents carved on it, Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. Those faces are not carved on it because they are the top 4 presidents. If that were the case, we'd have to have a sculptor up there going, you know what? You're telling me nobody since Roosevelt has even come close? You're telling me since Roosevelt, there hasn't been any reason to update this thing? It's not a top 4. Mount Rushmore has those faces put on there for specific reasons for each face. George Washington is up there to represent the nation's foundation. Thomas Jefferson is up there to represent the nation's expansion. Theodore Roosevelt is up there to represent the nation's development. We could get into it, right? I mean, development with you don't need an American history lesson now. And then Abraham Lincoln is there for America's preservation after getting us through the Civil War and preserving this nation for what it was built upon. So if you want to build a wrestling Mount Rushmore, you have to go through the foundation, expansion, development, and preservation of professional wrestling. And that's a bigger discussion because in my mind, you would go with modern professional wrestling, which is sports entertainment. So if you want to go, to me, the foundation of sports entertainment is probably Hulk Hogan. You could say it's Bruno Sammartino because he represented the WWF so well. You could go back and say it's Buddy Rogers because he's the first champion. You could say it's Gorgeous George because he was one of the first to really represent that over the top. But in terms of larger-than-life modern wrestling, what we know as modern wrestling today, I put Hulk Hogan as the foundation. When you talk about expansion, that means building this out even further. When you talk about expansion, that means making this bigger than we thought it could be. And there are some that would put Hulk Hogan in that expansion slot and put somebody, one of the more OGs, in the foundation spot, and I'd be okay with that. I'm willing to listen to that. I'm just not willing to listen to a top 4 list. Because to me, the expansion of pro wrestling, that would go to Stone Cold Steve Austin. You look at the expansion of pro wrestling, you go back to the Attitude Era, when people thought that wrestling would never get any bigger than when somewhere between 78 and 93,000 people packed into the Pontiac Silverdome for WrestleMania 3. It'll never get bigger than pro wrestling in the mid to late 80s. But guess what? The Attitude Era, it got even bigger. It became a staple of pop culture. And who was the top guy? Who was the one leading the charge? I would argue Stone Cold Steve Austin. Okay? When you look at development, that means turning wrestling into something that it otherwise would not have been. That means making it mean more, making it bigger, not just from an expansive point of view, not just from an audience point of view, but as wrestlers, what can we do? As an industry, what are we? And for me, that would go with The Rock. It's now commonplace to think like a top superstar can go off and become a Hollywood actor. But that wasn't the case before Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Hulk Hogan tried to do it. He wasn't able to do it. The Rock is the one that came in and said, no. Like before The Rock, it was, no, I know you're rich and famous, but you're a wrestler. We're not going to put you in a movie. Are you kidding me? It's a joke. Then The Rock came off and developed this thing we call professional wrestling, developed this thing we call a wrestling star into something even bigger. And then the preservation of sports entertainment, of professional wrestling, that I might be able to give to John Cena. Because when you look at WWE when it was in a downturn, when you look at WWE when it wasn't bringing in the money and the eyeballs that it used to, who was the one that kept it alive? Who was the one that was able to build it so that the next generation had something? That was John Cena. So he gets preservation. So I could give him a spot on Mount Rushmore, but the idea that Mount Rushmore is just a top 4, it's just a lazy way of trying to figure out Mount Rushmore. Anyway, John Cena says that this is all math, right? That every decision he's made has been calculated. The reason he fought Randy Orton in his hometown was because Randy Orton would be distracted by that hometown. He put R-Truth in the main event of Saturday Night's Main Event. Everything that he's done has been strategic on his road to being able to bring the WWE Championship back home, which obviously also refers to the fact that he's bringing the match with CM Punk to Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia. But he started by saying that even Cody Rhodes was distracted because Cody Rhodes was focused on what was going on with The Rock, and he knew that was going to happen. And then he said, and the audience was distracted by this idea that he said, I sold my soul to The Rock? Like that whole thing. And people have said, well, once The Rock didn't show up at WrestleMania, that story's done. It's not done because it's still being referenced. Cody Rhodes has referenced it. John Cena is now referencing it, and it's saying straight up, like, I didn't sell my soul to The Rock. I knew The Rock was going to do that. But it wasn't like, because initially, I think that a lot of us interpreted that moment of The Rock slitting his throat and John Cena. It felt like John Cena was going, you got it, boss. And that John Cena had said, hey, Rock, I'll take that deal you got with Cody. I'll sell you my soul. When in reality, what John Cena is saying is he knew The Rock was going to do that. He knew that Cody Rhodes was going to be distracted by that, and all he did was take advantage of it. He has no connection with The Rock or souls or any of that is what he's saying. He's just smarter than everybody else, and he uses math. So you got character development right there from John Cena in setting up exactly where he's at. And then Cody interrupts. Right? Cody interrupts, and I was thinking we get a CM Punk stare down. But Cody interrupts. And now it's a face-to-face with Cody and John Cena, which is, money, printing dollar bills. And Cody basically tells John Cena, look, you're telling everybody about your plan. Here's what I want you to understand. I'm not a part of your plan. You're a part of my plan. So Cody Rhodes is over here concocting a plan to get himself a rematch with John Cena. And by the way, the minute Cody Rhodes said, you're a part of my plan, I'm going, is this plan of Cody Rhodes going to be a plan of heroicism? Is it going to be a plan of of saving wrestling for the fans, of taking WWE to the next level, of being that person who is there to preserve pro wrestling? Or is the plan going to get egomaniacal and nefarious? Is the much speculated about Cody Rhodes heel turn still to come? And is this just a little hint? It could go either way, depending on how you want to analyze the words of the American Nightmare. Then Randy Orton interrupts because Cody Rhodes talking about getting a rematch with John Cena. Randy Orton comes out. And he goes, that's great and all, but like, you didn't beat me fair and square. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to win the King of the Ring tournament, and I'm going to come for you. And you're not going to be able to pull that nonsense with me anymore. Because this is true, right? Like John Cena has, and I think that maybe that's why the character is starting to be portrayed as not having as much control. Because even as he's describing this plan, first of all, everybody knows in any movie, when the villain starts explaining his plan to the good guy and to the audience, that's when the plan goes awry. Because the hubris of the villain, the hubris of this villain, to actually explain the plan before it is fully gone through, is exactly what's going to be the undoing of the plan. Now, John Cena is the WWE champion. Did John Cena win the championship too soon? If John Cena wanted to leave the WWE as champion, but is committed to staying in the WWE through the end of this calendar year, was winning it on the 20th of April the wisest move? Because not only do you have a Money in the Bank briefcase in play, which John Cena said Seth Rollins would never cash in on him, because Seth Rollins wants to be the only champion. But you've got that Money in the Bank briefcase in play, and now the reason Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes are coming out is because the King of the Ring is in play too. You're not going to be able to pick your opponent when it comes to who wins the King of the Ring. Also, when he said that about Seth Rollins, I said, you're playing with fire. You know, obviously this character is trying to present this idea of, well, I'll manipulate Seth Rollins. If I leave as champion, you'll be the only champion. But it's the same way when he was with Logan Paul. And he said, you know, it would be great, Logan Paul, if you win the other title, don't go after mine. You know, he's going to all the heels and saying, you should get the other title, then I'll leave with mine. Doesn't want to have to defend the title against the heels. You know, this guy is pretty smart after all. I still think that there's a very good chance that Seth Rollins is going to go after the WWE Championship. I don't see him going after the World Heavyweight Championship. I think that's what people are expecting. I think Seth Rollins' Money in the Bank briefcase is going to be used for the WWE Championship. And whether it's against John Cena, whether it's against the guy that beats John Cena, or whether it's Heist of the Century all over again, I think the WWE Undisputed Championship is the belt that Seth eventually walks out with. So as Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton are sitting in there giving John Cena the business, all of a sudden here comes L.A. Knight, and everybody starts cheering. And L.A. Knight sets things up so beautifully, you know, because the narrative online, of course, is that a lot of fans feel like L.A. Knight is not getting the proper shake. You know, there is a thing, I think, with a lot of us that we feel like if we're enthusiastic about a wrestler, they must be world champion. Like, we were talking about this with Karrion Kross a couple of weeks ago. I am a big fan of Karrion Kross, obviously. He's been on the show. I want the world for him. I think he should be on TV every week. I think he should be part of major storylines. But the idea of, hey, we like Karrion Kross. Let's give him the Money in the Bank briefcase, making the world champion. R-Truth comes back. We're all excited. Hey, let's make R-Truth the world champion. L.A. Knight comes. Hey, if you don't give L.A. Knight the world championship, then you're burying him. Like, not everybody needs to have the world championship to be in a great position. But, and is the point with L.A. Knight, right? But that's the debate. Has L.A. Knight been in a great position, or has he been in a just good enough position? And a lot of people would tell you that the position could be better. L.A. Knight comes out because he's in this thing too. As of now, he's going to be in a SmackDown triple threat match to get himself to the semifinals of the King of the Ring. And he comes to the ring like, you guys are having all the fun. I'd like to jump in here. Keep in mind, the last time John Cena was here, the last run John Cena had before this final run, L.A. Knight was a big part of it. And I think that could and should come up at some point in the future. As you know, When I did my John Cena fantasy year, which is now, rubbish, it makes no sense anymore, LA Knight was a part of it. A John Cena LA Knight match was absolutely in the cards, and I think should still be in the cards, personally. But LA Knight comes out and he calls John Cena a genius balding bitch, is what he calls John Cena, which I thought that was very funny. It's a funny line. But I think what was brilliant was when he said that the WWE establishment is out there. Cody Rhodes, John Cena, and Randy Orton. And what he's doing is, first words out of his mouth are acknowledging this idea that people see him as not getting a fair shake, that what makes him a babyface right now is the fact that he's fighting uphill. And people cheer those who they like that seem to be fighting uphill, that seem to have forces against them that don't want them to be at a certain level. So instantly, when he puts Cody and Randy and Cena in that WWE establishment space, it makes him look like the anti-hero, the anti-authority. It makes him look like that fresh, new entity that wrestling fans are always, in every era, on every show, every week of every year. Wrestling fans are always looking for new. They're always looking for the next thing. And LA Knight has a great showing. And then John Cena, wipes him away. I don't want to hear any of this. Ain't nobody got time for that, he says. And he leaves the ring. And on his way out, of all people, here comes Ron Killings. Ron Killings, R-Truth, comes out and beats down John Cena. So now, in this 20-minute promo to start the show, you've established that John Cena did not sell his soul. You've established that John Cena has this sociopathic, supervillain Lex Luthor type villain brain that is planning. He's politicking without saying that he's politicking his way to getting to the end of this thing with the championship, and is demonstrating how he's done that so far. But now he's also got enemies. He's also established Randy Orton, R-Truth, Cody Rhodes, and LA Knight as people that don't like him around, as people that want to take the title off of him, and as people that may start to be smartening up to his tricks, especially now that he's explained the whole plan. And they get back from commercial break, and John Cena he's yelling. He's yelling it at Nick Aldis. He puts his hat on backwards. He's yelling. He's getting right in Nick Aldis' face. He doesn't want to be disrespected. Now we're seeing Hollywood John Cena. Now we're seeing this John Cena who does, as a matter of fact, expect the red carpet to be laid out for him. And the fact that R-Truth came out of nowhere and attacked him, well, he doesn't expect to be paid that level of disrespect. He doesn't feel it's appropriate that he should be humiliated like that. And then SmackDown continues on, and SmackDown continues on. About an hour and a half, 2 hours later, John Cena finds Jimmy Uso. And Jimmy Uso, he doesn't want anything to do with John Cena. He's over it. He's not impressed. John Cena says, "You know where R-Truth is?" Jimmy says, "No." He goes, "I know you're close. Do you know where Ron Killings is?" And Jimmy says, "No, I don't know where Ron Killings is." And John Cena says, well, tell him if you find him, if you come across him, that I'm going back out to the ring and I'm going to be waiting for him. Now, and then we go to commercial break, and John Cena's coming back out. He came out to start the show, and then at that 2-hour mark, he's coming back out into the ring. And all of a sudden, moments like this, I love. Because John Cena coming back out, his music playing, and now he's just walking out to the ring. Now it feels like the formula is being disrupted. The reason that SmackDown, to me, I think, felt very fresh on Friday was because all of a sudden, the formula is being disrupted. As wrestling fans who watch everything every week, we start to understand the beats. We start to understand the beats of the show, where things are going to fit in, because that's where things fit in, because that is how you present a WWE television show. And then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? It's like if John Cena's coming out for the first promo of the night, that first segment of the television show, that's where you're going to do the John Cena business. And then you're going to move on to the next thing, you're going to move on to the next thing. and you can bet your bottom dollar Cody Rhodes is going to main event the show. And you kind of, within the first 20 minutes, can map out in your head maybe what the show's going to look like. And I love when a monkey wrench is thrown into that. I love when it starts to feel like, oh, these characters really do have this turmoil that doesn't fit into the confines of a television format. John Cena comes out again for the first time this whole run and gets in the ring, and because he's been seething for the last 2 hours about what R-Truth did to him, and demands that R-Truth come out. And what do we hear? CM Punk comes out, the guy that I thought was going to come out in the top of the show, and because he didn't come out in the top of the show, I go, oh, this must not be one of CM Punk's dates, but they're all CM Punk's dates. He was at Worlds Collide, for God's sake. Even when he's not on TV, he's Instagramming pictures. Look what show I'm at today. I mean, to say CM Punk is back, CM Punk is back. And all the speculative haters that were around, a year and a half ago have been very, very quiet when it comes to CM Punk. But CM Punk comes out and I go, yeah. Because now you talk about stories, you talk about juggling, you talk about there being meat on this bone. Now we're sitting there getting all into a potential Cody Rhodes, John Cena match. Getting all into seeing what Randy Orton and LA Knight might want to do with John Cena. Getting all into a potential John Cena R-Truth match. And then here comes CM Punk. Did you forget about me? I'm the one who's on the graphic for the next PLE. CM Punk comes out and another promo battle starts. I mean, CM Punk comes out and he gives John Cena one chance. He gives him a chance and he says, I'm going to give you a chance to go back on what you said. He goes, at some point, you're going to have to grovel to these fans so that you can go out a hero. And now that felt a little real, right? Like we all know, before you leave at the end of the year, you're going to have to get the fans back on your side. You're going to have to grovel back to them. I am here to tell you, you can do it right now. And we can forget about this whole thing. I'm giving you one chance. And John Cena doesn't take the chance, and CM Punk says, okay. And CM Punk cut this promo, and he did it in a style where it was almost like, it was one of those promos that it felt like there was reality in the subtext. So it didn't have the sort of polish that a standard wrestling promo does. But I like when that polish is kind of gone, because all of a sudden things start to feel real. All of a sudden tensions start to exist, and tensions that feel real. It makes you want to see these matches when you realize there may be something under the surface that is true. Punk says that John Cena's stealing his best material. And that was a great line, because what he brings up is Money in the Bank 2011. And he's saying, I did everything you're talking about doing, which interestingly enough is the last AEW promo that Cody Rhodes cut. When he talks about the pipe bomb, I did everything that you talked about. Now CM Punk is in the WWE telling John Cena everything that you're talking about, I did in 2011 after my match with you. He said, John, you've never been better than me. You weren't better than me at my best. You just have never been able to beat me. And that could mean in a wrestling ring, but that could also mean, as the guy that fans really wanted to see, as the guy that fans wanted to cheer. You've never been able to beat me, John. And that's when he gets into, you're stealing my best material, man. And I love that line, because not only does it acknowledge the fact that CM Punk is like, I've seen this before. I wrote this play. But also CM Punk is being humble and honest enough. Like, there's not that many active performers that go, that's my best work. That stuff that happened back there. But CM Punk is like, yeah, man, that made me. And now you're taking it. Well, guess what? It's not going to work. He talks about John Cena being the GOAT. He says that that John Cena is the GOAT, but that John Cena is the GOAT that I'd spit roast as a sacrifice to the gods of wrestling. And I was like, yeah, yes, Punk. And Cena's just sitting there watching. And even Punk's line about you look like a toddler who just struck out in T-ball. And then he looks at the audience and he goes, did you actually like that line? Because I'd like it stricken from the record. Because it made me sound like you. It was a PG John Cena line. And it's like, if this character that John Cena is portraying right now is a response to the reaction that he got in his prime from the audience booing him all those years, then imagine CM Punk coming forwards and pointing out why they booed him. Pointing out all the things that John Cena was doing that are the reasons why this audience was booing him. PG promos were one of the reasons that the audience that he resents so much for booing him were booing him. We'll get back to it momentarily, but I got to ask you, have you ever gotten slapped with a fee to move your own money from an app to your bank account? Well, Cash App is different. There are no fees, and it's an easy and safe way to send, receive, and transfer money to your friends and family. You don't even need a bank account to get started. You just enter your phone number or your email address, and if that still isn't selling you, then how about this? Cash App is an actual official partner of the WWE. You probably saw it all over Money in the Bank. I saw the Money in the Bank briefcase itself, I think. I love Cash App, not only because it's a partner of WWE and it makes me think of wrestling, but because it's so easy, you know? I got to send Hot Dog a couple bucks, or I owe my parents money. I'm using Cash App. Boom, boom, boom. And that's the best part about Cash App. It's easy and it's secure, so I can actually just show my parents how to use it real quick, and it's a game changer. In fact, it's so secure that if you're about to send money to like a sketchy account, they alert you. The other big guys, they don't do that. They don't care about you the way Cash App does. For a limited time only, new Cash App users can use my exclusive code to earn some additional cash. For real, there's no catch. Just download Cash App and sign up. Use my exclusive referral code, NOTSAM, in your profile. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. That's it. It's that easy. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Punk says that Cena simply can't handle the truth. And of course, when he talks about the truth, everybody knows what he's talking about. And CM Punk leaves the ring before John Cena responds. And here comes R-Truth again. Ron Killings again is back out here and beats down John Cena again, puts John Cena in the STFU. Cena's own submission move, and the referees are trying to stop it. And Truth finally stops it, and he splits. And CM Punk grabs the microphone again and says, and the truth hurts. So now it's like, are we telling the story of Cody Rhodes a month or two from now? Are we telling the story of CM Punk a week or two from now? Are we telling the story of R-Truth today? You're telling the story of John Cena, a villain that has made nothing but enemies over the last 4 months, now having to deal with those exact enemies. Because we come back from commercial break, and now R-Truth is back there with Nick Aldis, and the match is made. We're getting Ron Killings versus John Cena on SmackDown next week. This is extremely significant. Number one, it's the first rematch that John Cena has had since returning to the WWE this year. In his 2025, R-Truth is the one getting the first return match. And it's the first TV match. I mean, save for Saturday night's main event. But he hasn't done any matches on Raw or SmackDown since he came back. And now we're getting a SmackDown match with John Cena on Friday. But let's talk about R-Truth. Let's lead right into that. Let's lead right in to the topic of Ron Killings, okay? And in my head, you know, when I think about this podcast, I think about it in terms of topics. I mean, it's all one stream of consciousness sometimes, but this I mean, it lends right off to the other, because as Killings is in the locker room, coming off of the attack on John Cena, and the announcement is made that the match is going to be made official, before that announcement is made, Nick Aldis is on his way to talk to Ron Killings. But as Nick Aldis approaches him, he's talking to himself. He's pacing back and forth, and he's talking to himself. Okay? And it's not like he's muttering under his breath. It's not, to me, it didn't feel like he was just angry and venting, like punching a wall. It felt like he was involved in a conversation with himself. It felt like there was a dialogue happening inside his own head. I mean, keep in mind, everything counts. The last time that Ron Killings was this aggressive as a character was when he was a heel, when he fought John Cena at, Capital Punishment. And when R-Truth was a heel, when R-Truth was this aggressive, what made him a villain, what made him violent, was that he was nuts. He went mad. And it turned him into a villain. But that's when Little Jimmy showed up. Little Jimmy was part of R-Truth as a heel. Little Jimmy was part of the aggressive R-Truth. And one of the things that made him scary and aggressive was the fact that he was nuts and talking to this Little Jimmy guy. And then it kind of evolved from there. And Little Jimmy was, to me, I think, kind of that thing that pushed R-Truth out of being a heel and into being a lovable babyface, just because it was so damn entertaining. But ultimately, that Little Jimmy crazy relationship was part of R-Truth as an aggressive character. Now, look, you might be saying, why are you calling him R-Truth? Why aren't you calling him Ron Killings like he announced himself last week on Raw? And the answer is, I mean, Joe Test was still calling him R-Truth. When the graphic came up on SmackDown that said, John Cena is wrestling next week, it was a picture of John Cena, and it was a new picture of Ron Killings. He had his new haircut, short hair with the stripes going all over the place and everything, but it said R-Truth on it. The graphic said R-Truth. The commentators are still calling him R-Truth. They were jumping back and forth between Ron Killings and R-Truth. And he keeps saying, I'm driving now. That's the new thing. I'm driving now. Okay? He said R-Truth freed Ron Killings. That's what he said last week on Raw when he showed up with the hoodie on, jumped up on the commentator's table. He said R-Truth freed Ron Killings. Then, everything counts. I'm putting this in storyline as well. I don't know if you saw him on our friends on Busted Open on SiriusXM, but Bubba Ray Dudley has this take, and they put out a video of it saying basically he thought that once R-Truth cut his dreadlocks off, that he should have made no mention of the truth anymore. That once he cut his dreadlocks off and introduced himself as Ron Killings, there should have been no reference to truth, which I don't necessarily agree with, because we all know him as R-Truth. Let's not pretend that didn't happen. When he was the name R-Truth comes from Ron the Truth Killings, which was his name in NWA TNA. And so it didn't really it felt like more of an evolution than a character switch. But if anybody is entitled to have an opinion in this world of professional wrestling, I would say it's Bubba Ray Dudley. So R-Truth goes on Busted Open, he zooms in. And he tweets about it. And there's an expletive-laden tweet that he puts out about how much he did not like the take that came out, about how much he did not like that opinion. And Natalia and Dave LaGreca talked to R-Truth about it, and he basically says, oh, I'm sorry about that tweet. I'm going to delete it right now. I don't talk like that. I don't know what that is. That's not really how I talk. And he's kind of smiling, and he's kind of being polite. I really don't talk like that. I'm going to delete it. My neighbors talk like that, not me. And then they play the clip, and when they're done playing the clip, all of a sudden, he's talking like that. Who the F are you to tell me who I am? Who the F are you to tell me what I should be saying? Everybody wants to tell you who you are. Everybody wants to tell you what you should be saying. They don't know. I wish Bubba would. That's what he kept saying. I wish Bubba would. But he crashed out. He completely switched on me. He switched personalities. Okay? When I look at the way he was portrayed, what he was saying on Raw, what he was doing on Busted Open, what he was doing on SmackDown, what he was saying on SmackDown, I don't think that this is as simple as, well, he was R-Truth and he got fired. And when they re-signed him, he wanted to re-sign as Ron Killings. So now he's going by Ron Killings and he's angry. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's like my old character was R-Truth, my new character is Ron Killings. I think it's much more complicated than that. And I don't think that we're saying goodbye to R-Truth. I think that Ron Killings is driving now. I think the idea here is that, and maybe I'm looking too deep into this, but if you're watching or listening to this podcast and you don't want somebody who thinks way too deeply about pro wrestling, it's the wrong show for you. It's all I do. I think that this vessel, this meat suit that we've known as R-Truth, that on the inside of this human being exists R-Truth, who's the person that we've all fallen in love with, exists R-Truth, who's this person that fans felt so strongly about that they chanted at buildings, "We want truth." The fans felt so strongly about that they were outraged that the WWE wouldn't renew his contract. R-Truth, who the locker room apparently felt strongly enough about that they said this is going to negatively impact what the locker room is without R-Truth. He's the guy who won the 24/7 title. He's the guy who broke Brock Lesnar. He's the guy that wanted to enter the Money in the Bank ladder match, realized he wasn't in it, and said, "My bad." He's the guy that then thought the Royal Rumble was the Money in the Bank ladder match. This is all R-Truth. But R-Truth hasn't always been R-Truth. Ron Killings existed before R-Truth. And Ron Killings has a very, very complicated past. Ron Killings has seen and done a lot of things and lived a life that probably most people, at least in the beginning, may not want for their children. And I think that the idea of this character is that he's all still one man. That it's not him saying, "Hey, R-Truth was a fictional character I was portraying, and now the character I'm portraying is Ron Killings." No. He is R-Truth. But he is Ron Killings as well. And for the last however many years, R-Truth has been the one driving. And when R-Truth is driving, you're not going to win any major championships. You can get the 24/7 championship, but Peter Rosenberg is going to pin you on a pre-show. God bless Peter Rosenberg. When R-Truth is driving, you're going to get released from your contract for no apparent reason. When R-Truth is driving, you're going to come out in a John Cena. You're going to come out to congratulate John Cena. He's going to put you through a table. That's what happens when R-Truth is driving. When R-Truth is driving, everybody's going to have a good time, but ultimately, you're never going to get past a certain level. When Ron Killings has the wheel, things get a lot more unpredictable. When Ron Killings has the wheel, things get a lot more dangerous for a lot more people. When Ron Killings has the wheel, maybe the emphasis on people having a good time is not there as much as it was before. I don't know if you want to call it schizophrenic. I don't know if you want to call it multiple personalities. You know, I think that there is some force inside that body that makes the decision as to whether R-Truth is running things or Ron Killings is running things. And if you're having a good time, if you're hanging and banging, if you're laughing, R-Truth is probably behind the wheel. But if you're not laughing, if there's a little fear in your voice, if you think that maybe you better get out of there, if you're feeling pain, maybe Ron Killings is driving. You know what I mean? I think that that's where we're at. So he's still R-Truth, but somebody has awakened this sleeping beast. And that somebody may be portrayed as John Cena. You know, it'll be very interesting to see this version of R-Truth, this version of Ron Killings in his first match, to see if, like, you know, that level of aggression can maintain, to see if after all these years we can look at Ron Killings and go, yeah, he's a threat to John Cena. Because that's what you need to do, right? Even if John Cena is able to win, and maybe he won't, you know? I don't think it's a title match. Is there a world where maybe Randy Orton, maybe Cody Rhodes, maybe CM Punk, maybe LA Knight, maybe any of those enemies John Cena has made cost John Cena this match? Is there a world where R-Truth pins John Cena, where Ron Killings pins John Cena on SmackDown? Look, it'd be good for the Ron Killings character, that's for sure. We'll have to wait and see, but the reason, of course, as we stated earlier, that Orton and LA Knight are so closely involved in this John Cena thing are because they both were at one point in the King of the Ring tournament. Getting back to consequences, actions having consequences, there's just something that I love about actions having consequences. Because actions having consequences, as I said, makes me feel like I did the right thing by watching the show. Makes me feel like I did the right thing by paying attention. I love that Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed came out on SmackDown and cost LA Knight that fatal four-way. I mean, I think it's really good for LA Knight because even though they could have just had Randy Orton RKO, first of all, Randy Orton could have pinned somebody else in that match, Carmelo or whoever else was in that match, and everything would have been fine. Randy Orton still would have won. Or honestly, it's Randy Orton. He could have RKO'd LA Knight, and that would have been that. But instead, he pins LA Knight, but LA Knight still has plausible deniability. LA Knight doesn't, you don't look at LA Knight now and go, well, he couldn't qualify for the King of the Ring. You look at LA Knight and you go, Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker screwed LA Knight. You also look at LA Knight now and go, hey, is he going to end up with a World Heavyweight Championship match? Is he going to end up fighting Seth Rollins before SummerSlam? Be it at Night of Champions, be it at a Saturday Night's Main Event. I mean, we're moving in between these brands. Is that possible? You know, this could end up being even better for LA Knight. But I think I bring up the consequences to say that, yes, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, and that's probably why I liked most that they interfered in the match and cost LA Knight the victory, because the Bronsons cost LA Knight the King of the Ring tournament because LA Knight cost Braun Breaker the King of the Ring tournament because Braun Breaker cost LA Knight the Money in the Bank. So it's because he was working for Seth Rollins. So now, why hit you, you hit me. I hit you, you hit me. And now I'm sitting there going, okay, well, Bronson Reed is in a fatal four-way qualifier on Monday Night Raw this week. I would imagine LA Knight would stop him from winning that fatal four-way because now LA Knight is the one who owes Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed a visit. And then maybe we'll get to wherever we're going. But I like that. Jey Uso was announced as being the person who's going to be in that mystery spot on Monday Night Raw. Basically, they said, Adam Pearce put out an Instagram, and he said he was kind of waiting to see who won between Gunther and Jey Uso, implying that, let's say Gunther had not won the World Heavyweight Championship, that Gunther would have been in that mystery spot. But instead, Jey Uso is in the mystery spot, so the Raw match is going to be Sheamus, Rusev, Bronson Reed, and Jey Uso. So for me, as I'm looking at this men's King of the Ring tournament, in my mind, you've got Sheamus and Rusev who are in a program together, and it's just starting. And you've got Bronson Reed who's got beef with LA Knight. So I feel as though Jey Uso's a shoo-in to win this thing. I feel like everybody else coming off of this match has non-King of the Ring business to participate in. Rusev and Sheamus with each other, Bronson Reed with LA Knight, or whoever Seth Rollins has beef with. And Jey Uso can come out on top. And Jey Uso can get a pin over Bronson Reed, right? Like if Sheamus and Rusev are beating the crap out of each other, and LA Knight comes in and takes down, hits Bronson Reed with a BFT, and then Jey Uso hits him with a splash and gets the pin over Bronson Reed, boom. Jey Uso now gets a victory after losing the title, gets a pin over Bronson Reed, gets to move forward in the tournament. And then, most interestingly, we're left with Cody Rhodes versus Jey Uso. And I love when this stuff happens in the King of the Ring tournament. I love, even more than great enemies fighting, I love that this is the one instance where you can have an excuse for these brothers to have to compete against each other. So the idea then would be that the Final Four in the King of the Ring tournament, the semifinals, on one side we know is Randy Orton versus Sami Zayn. And on the other side would be Cody Rhodes versus Jey Uso. Now you go two different ways with this. I've seen a lot of people go, yeah, and then we could have Jey Uso versus Sami Zayn, and then Sami Zayn wins the King of the Ring. Now for me, and that's very possible, okay? You could do... In my mind, if Seth Rollins cashed in the briefcase before SummerSlam, then Sami Zayn winning that match would make sense. Sami Zayn winning the King of the Ring tournament would make sense. Because it's not just about being King of the Ring. I think that people need to get that out of their heads. When Xavier Woods won King of the Ring, it made sense because it was just about being King of the Ring, carrying that crown. Same with Zelina Vega. And it's like, let's use this crown to elevate somebody going forward, and this can be their title. They can be the King of the Ring. And it was effective. But now, the winner of the King of the Ring tournament gets a championship match at SummerSlam. When you look at your champions, I mean, like that's where you have to go. When people are having a conversation with me about who ends up as King of the Ring, it is leading directly to a world title match on a 2-night stadium premium live event. So you have to explain to me exactly what that title match is, which I think is fair, and I think you can get there, you know? Like, I don't see Jey Uso versus Gunther as your SummerSlam world title match. I just don't see another Jey Uso versus Gunther match happening, especially at SummerSlam. So that's why I don't see Jey Uso winning the King of the Ring tournament. Sami Zayn, I suppose, could, it'd be interesting if Goldberg really does come back and he beats Gunther for the world title, and then you have Sami Zayn versus Goldberg at SummerSlam. Goldberg beats him. Goldberg beats everybody. No, in my mind, I go, okay, I would have Randy Orton beat Sami Zayn, and I would have Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes just have one of the most epic matches of all time. And Cody Rhodes beats Jey Uso. So now you get it. Now we go to Night of Champions, where you've got, you've got John Cena versus CM Punk, and you've got Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. And you might be saying, but this Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton match is something people have been waiting for. It's an epic encounter. And I'm saying, yes, I agree with you. But this is a babyface versus babyface tournament final of Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. This is not the Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton match. This is a Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton match. I think this is a perfect opportunity to dip your foot in there. It's been long enough that we've had to wait. It's going to get people interested. And once you turn one of those two heel and you tell a real story, and maybe one of them is a champion and there's a world championship on the line, then you're going to be able to go a whole different direction with it. But I think the story between Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton is not just, hey, it's teacher versus student. But the reality is that we are going for SummerSlam, and only one of us is going to get a rematch with John Cena. The other one may never get that rematch with John Cena. We both got screwed by John Cena in the exact same way. We both took a championship belt to the side of the face and ended up losing. And now we both need this. Now, to me, it's SummerSlam, so the biggest match is Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. And you get that rematch and you build up Cody is this heel, and you build up John Cena. You go however you want to go. You could have Randy Orton beat Cody Rhodes, and then John Cena beats Randy Orton at SummerSlam. And this leaves Randy Orton distraught, and it leaves Cody Rhodes even more on the come up when eventually he finally does get his rematch and he beats John Cena later in the year, and Randy Orton is extremely jealous and wants the championship both, and now you've got that Cody versus Randy story. But every instinct in me is Cody beats Randy Orton at Night of Champions, and at SummerSlam you do Cody versus John Cena. Every instinct in me is saying that. I don't know if it'll happen. I would have said SummerSlam is the time to do CM Punk versus John Cena, but they're doing CM Punk versus John Cena at Night of Champions. Every instinct in me is to do Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. And maybe Seth Rollins cashes in. Maybe that's an element of it. Maybe there's 150 different things that could happen. But that to me is where it goes. I mean, listen, Sami Zayn versus Jey Uso for the King of the Ring crown would be great. But are we doing a heel Sami versus a babyface Gunther? Are we doing Sami versus Cena? Are we, are we doing Sami still as a babyface versus Gunther and just running it back from WrestleMania 40? Because if that's the case, I mean, I don't like both Jey versus Gunther and Sami versus Gunther are WrestleMania rematches from 40 and 41. So that's why I get a little iffy on that being the final, but we'll see. It very well could be. On the women's side, listen, the last four-way is Asuka, Stephanie Vaquer, Raquel, and Ivy Nile. And I understand this is Asuka's return match, and they're hyping it up as Asuka's return match. And Asuka winning the Queen of the Ring makes a lot of sense because then you're left with Asuka versus Io Sky. And that's kind of a no-brainer. Asuka versus Io Sky at SummerSlam is easy pickings. But what if you didn't do that? I really want to see Stephanie Vaquer win the Queen of the Ring tournament. And Stephanie Vaquer, once she gets into the semifinals, I feel like, you've got, like, what would it be? I think she would fight Alexa Bliss, who could lose due to, she could beat Alexa Bliss with Charlotte Flair's help. And then maybe Jade Cargill beats Roxanne, and maybe, with Naomi as a distraction, Stephanie Vaquer beats Jade Cargill, or however it happens. I just feel like this is a really good opportunity for Stephanie Vaquer to win. Now, at the same time, the fact that Naomi has the Money in the Bank briefcase, Jade Cargill winning also feels like a no-brainer. The idea that Jade Cargill could win, and either Naomi cashes in and beats Tiffany Stratton before SummerSlam, and now it's Naomi versus Jade at SummerSlam, or Jade Cargill beats Tiffany at SummerSlam, and then Naomi immediately cashes in and takes Jade Cargill's moment from her. And now we've established that Jade Cargill should be a champion, and we still get to see her chase. Clearly, that makes all the sense in the world. I mean, there are three instances to me that make all the sense in the world. Asuka winning to go on to Io versus Asuka. Jade winning because it would completely further this Naomi Jade story, however you want to do it. And Stephanie Vaquer winning just because, Stephanie is it. And the idea that she could win the Queen of the Ring tournament in Riyadh and then go on to SummerSlam in a stadium and beat whoever, whichever champion she ends up facing. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of, and I think Stephanie Vaquer versus Io Sky, which would probably be the match, right? Stephanie and Io. Stephanie versus Io would be insane. I mean, my God. I don't know. There's a lot of directions that you could go in with it, but that's just kind of where I'm thinking. I mean, listen, there is one thing you have to take note of, and that's something we found out on Friday, which is Naomi is not Boo Boo the Fool, okay? So who do you think she is, Boo Boo the Fool? She isn't. And that's something I think everybody needs to keep in mind as we keep going further with the title picture and the Queen of the Ring. While we still have a few minutes, I do want to touch upon the fact that I think got the beginning of the next book of Bloodline Jacob Fatu comes out after costing Solo Sikoa the Money in the Bank ladder match. Jacob Fatu comes out all by himself and cuts his promo as an individual, and it goes off without a hitch. I mean, everything about Jacob Fatu just screams the guy. Everybody loves him. He carries himself with such a presence, such a persona, there's a relatability, but there's also this thing of like, I want him to be my cool friend. Everything about Jacob is amazing. I mean, he just sits there and he's like, hey, he just wants to talk to everybody. He goes, and we go, yeah, that's your name. And we love that name. They're chanting. He's in the ring. They go, Fatu, Fatu, Fatu. They're going crazy. That's in Lexington, Kentucky. From coast to coast, they can't stop shouting this man's name. And then Solo interrupts him. Solo Sikoa interrupts him. And he's coming in from his gangster office. The office, which used to be filled with Samoans and Tongans. Remember there was a time when Solo Sikoa would sit at that table and you'd see Paul Heyman and you'd see Jacob Fatu and you'd see Tama Tonga and you'd see Tongaloa. Well, now that office, there's a lot of space in that office. He could move into a smaller office. It's just Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo. And Solo Sikoa's giving him one of these. I mean, dude, Solo Sikoa does not get half of the credit that he's owed. Solo Sikoa is low-key excellent. The range that Solo Sikoa has shown in the last 2 or 3 years is outrageous. The fact that he can pull off what he pulls off and has pulled off what he has pulled off is insane. And this is a guy who was on NXT 2.0 not that long ago. And was just a cool young badass. And then he shows up and he's the strong silent type, the enforcer. And then he becomes the sort of, Weasley boy king leader. And then he becomes this swaggy, sarcastic, kind of goofy guy who's in charge, but really only maintains his position because of the powerful people behind him. And now there was something about this promo where you started to feel like Solo was like, hey man, don't make me remind you who I am. We're all having a good time. Don't make me remind you who I am. And you started to get the feeling like, oh yeah, I almost forgot. Solo Sikoa is capable. He's capable. When he's not making faces and being sarcastic, he put 12 Samoan spikes into John Cena's neck. He's capable. So he goes, Jacob, you seem to have forgotten that a year ago, when I found you, you were doing nothing and going nowhere. I brought you in. I put money in your pocket. I gave you all of this. But Solo, everybody's entitled to a mistake, he says. Next week, I'm going to come out to the ring. I'm going to have my arms out. And there's only 3 words that I want you to say, or 4 words. Yeah, because you have to make it specific of who you're talking to. There are only 4 words, Jacob Fatu, that I want you to say to me.
I love you, Solo!
And then it's all good. So I'll see you next week. But Solo says, Jacob, just remember, I brought you into this world, and I can take you out. And that's it. And Solo actually seems threatening for the first time since he was actually threatening. And you go, oh, maybe there's a reason he's the boss now. Maybe there's a reason that he has this level of power. I think we're going to get another I hate you Solo, and I think there's going to be a massive pop. You remember on SmackDown when Paul Heyman said, I do not acknowledge you as my tribal chief. Everybody went crazy. Paul Heyman went through a table. I think that we'll get what we got at Money in the Bank, except we'll get it into a microphone this time, of Jacob Fatu saying, I hate you Solo. And then JC Mateo is going to be looking at him. And then I would imagine, right? I would think, I would hope, I would like that if at that point we see this Hikuleo on television. Hikuleo is another Tongan, but he's about 7 feet. He's a giant of a man. I believe he's the younger brother of Tama Tonga and Tangaloa. Tall individual, tall drink of water, big guy, 7 foot plus. And he wrestled a dark match. It's either a dark match or they're going to use it on main event, wherever they're going to use it. He wrestled a match, which you can find, of course, all over on YouTube, before SmackDown went on the air on Friday. And this is a signing. He's been in New Japan. He was a part of the Bullet Club. This is a signing that people had been aware of. And they were kind of waiting. He's been down at the Performance Center for a while. And I would think if there is a plan to bring him into this story, that now would be a good time to have, you know, a human tank like JC Mateo and a giant on earth like Hikuleo that Jacob Fatu has to get past to get to Solo Sikoa. I mean, it would make sense. You have to build this threat. Jacob Fatu, the only thing wrong with Jacob Fatu is you have to make me believe that there's somebody that he might not be able to beat, because it's so hard to picture Jacob Fatu being put down by anybody. Anybody. You mention their name, and I'm going to assume that Jacob is going to be able to dog walk their ass. Okay? You know what I mean? But you have to convince me that there are forces here that can't be dog walked. And maybe Hikuleo is the answer, maybe combined with JC Mateo. I think ultimately you want Jacob Fatu versus Solo Sikoa to become this big, big match, right? And I think that in order to do that, not only do you have to have that build-up with an army in front of Solo Sikoa, but when the front line gets put down, what you don't want to find is a cowardly general. You know, what you don't want to find is that movie stereotype of a person who puts all the strong people in front of him, and then when all the strong people get wiped away, you find this person who's meek, who's weak, who needed all this, and you know, it's Oz. It's Oz, the great and powerful, who once you pull back the curtain is just a weak old man. You know, I hope that in the process of having this army in front of him, what we find with Solo is that he's as big a threat as he's ever been behind this army. I would love to see, in the weeks that it takes for Jacob to get to Solo, for Solo to be built up. I think Solo should have some matches. I think Solo should put some people in the ground. I think Solo should keep the charisma that he has now as a guy who talks all the time, and keep some of his mannerisms too, but also when the bell rings, I think it's time to get back to having Solo Sikoa plowing through people and reminding us why we love Solo Sikoa. There was a time when a lot of us thought that the Roman Reigns Solo Sikoa match was going to be able to main event at WrestleMania, and that maybe Solo Sikoa was going to beat Roman Reigns and become the WWE champion. A lot of people thought that. Bring that Solo back, combined with this Solo, but bring that threat back to this version of Solo Sikoa. And I think over the course of a few weeks, a few months, you have Solo Sikoa plowing through people while Jacob Fatu is dealing with the bloodline the way he's dealing with it. I think then you could have a real massive match between Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Let's just hope that that's the way it goes, you know? Hey, let's get to these emails. The email address here at Notsam Wrestling is notsamwrestling@gmail.com. That is notsamwrestling@gmail.com. If you have opinions about anything that we talk about here on the podcast, or anything else going on in the world of wrestling, then feel free to email in to notsamwrestling@gmail.com. Megan Morant has already texted me, asking me all kinds of questions about Hikuleo. I love it. I love it. Avik writes in, what's the haps from London? I love how international our audience is here at Not Sam Wrestling. Over the course of your wrestling fandom, how would you describe your fondness for King of the Ring? I personally loved it, but preferred the final 8 to have all their matches in one night, i.e. 94, 95, etc. And 93. King of the Ring 93 was an 8-man single elimination tournament. Though I do understand it was harder to sell a pay-per-view back in the day if 3 of the main matches are yet to be announced. Well, you just had a big main event, you know? I mean, King of the Ring 93, it was an 8-man single elimination tournament, but you also had Hogan versus Yokozuna. Also, we're not selling pay-per-views anymore. It's the PLE era, baby. Well, you don't have Peacock, you don't have Netflix, you're in London. You need Netflix, that's all you need. Which format do you prefer, the old school way or today when just the finals are on certain PLEs? I like the 8-man single elimination tournament. I always have. I love the 8-man one-night tournament. It really feels like an accomplishment. I loved the Bret Hart tournament. I loved the Owen Hart tournament. You know, there's the Mabel tournament in 95. Of course, Austin winning in 96. But I believe when Austin won in 96, that was just the semifinals and the finals. I don't think 96 was, I think 96 was 4 men. But yeah, I love the 8-man single elimination tournament where it really feels like you've won something in that night. That's my preferred King of the Ring. And then I like having like qualifiers. Like there were some years, I feel like in 93 and 94, like you started with like 16 or even 32 men. Like I love the idea of starting with like 32 men or women, well, you know, 32 wrestlers. And then doing qualifying matches on TV. And then you end up with your 8. They always had at least 16 wrestlers in the tournament. They would do qualifying matches. Some of those qualifying matches were great. 93 Doink's qualifying matches were outrageous. I think it was Doink versus Mr. Perfect. And they ran it back like 3 times because it was so good. 3 qualifying matches. 2 of them were like no contest, you know, throw out, double DQ, whatever, time limit things. Nick writes in, humblest of greetings to the OPTC. Thank you. I'm not sure if I heard you say this or thought it, but SummerSlam could be John Cena versus Roman Reigns with Seth lurking in the background. I mean, that's true. If you had, Roman would have to come back soon. And then you'd have to explain why he's going after John Cena. The last time we saw Roman, he got laid out by Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. So for Roman to come back and be like, I'm back for John Cena, it's almost like, okay. I mean, it could happen. He wants the title. He hates John Cena. However you want to do it. It's not that crazy, but it's just kind of like, okay. And he'd also have to do it soon. Like, I guess he could come back at Saturday night's main event or Night of Champions, I suppose. While Cody, and then either Jey Uso or Sami Zayn could win the tournament for the World Heavyweight Championship match. While Cody has to watch and either let the cards fall where they may or has to interfere, but then whose side does he choose? Yeah, I mean, I would think that the interest would be he helps Roman Reigns win, and then he has to fight Roman Reigns. If he doesn't side with Seth, that can lead to Cody Seth. Either Cena, yeah. There's something there. Jonathan writes in, hello, my beautifully bald OPTC. Hello from the original and only podcast tribal chief. I acknowledge you. Okay, good. I'm seeking your opinion. I'll give you one of these.
Fatu!
I'm seeking your opinion on what SmackDown. I'm seeking your opinion on what SmackDown match between Ron Killings and John Cena might lead to, with it being too difficult to envision either Cena or Truth to take a clean loss. What are the chances of returning Travis Scott, screwing Truth out of the win and leading to a feud between the two, culminating in a match at SummerSlam? I would say that would be slim. Getting Travis Scott to show up to SmackDown and decide to build a feud between Ron Killings and John Cena before you do the CM Punk match, I would say slim. It has been rumored that Travis Scott had been training. Yeah, no, I think there's a higher likelihood that CM Punk could interfere, or a Cody Rhodes could interfere, or somebody like that. But I could see CM Punk interfering, and I could see Ron Killings getting the win. I really could. This is the one where I could see John Cena ate a pinfall to Cody Rhodes in the tag match. I could see Ron Killings beating John Cena. In fact, I think Ron Killings is going to beat John Cena on SmackDown. I think there's going to be interference. I think it'll probably be from CM Punk. Could be Cody Rhodes. Probably CM Punk. And I think John Cena will lose to Ron Killings due to CM Punk's interference. That's what I think. Pedro writes in, Hola, Chief Sam. Hola, would you rather be Roman, champ for 2 years but never wrestle. By the way, it was 3 years. Or Jay, champ for less than a month but have 3 of the greatest matches of all time. I mean, okay, an obvious exaggeration, but I would pick Roman. Yeah, I mean, what are you talking about? Would you rather work harder or work smarter? Everybody would want to work smarter. Anybody who's going like, I could work smarter, but I much prefer harder. I'd like to do as much work as I can in a short amount of time, as opposed to like, no, you have 2 years to do this. Yeah, no, I mean, of course, you'd have to, Roman. I don't even know. Chris writes in, hi, my OPTC.
Fatu!
After Jay losing the championship to Gunther, after having such a short reign with it, and his Intercontinental Championship, do you see him having a slow build into a heel and blaming the fans for this? Hopefully not yeet. No. And if he did, no, I can't do another heel turn blaming the fans. No. Why would he blame the fans? What? I mean, it's like literally, are you asking, do you see Jey Uso doing the exact same gimmick as John Cena? No, I do not see Jey Uso doing the exact same gimmick as John Cena. It would feel repetitive, and also like, why don't we just throw money in the garbage can? Like, I don't see Jey Uso turning heel. There's nothing to turn heel about. Again, it's like, is he better off now after being champion than he was before he was champion? The answer is yes. He's a bigger star now. He's still got one of the biggest entrances in the company. He's still selling merch like crazy. He's still like one of the biggest stars. Like, you don't have to have a belt. Not everybody should just have a belt. Alvis writes in, hey, Sam, love from India. Love that. I wanted to share my opinion on the current state of Jey Uso. Love this. I'm sending this mail after the Raw where Gunther wins the heavyweight title. I feel that his title reign was quite underwhelming since there's this mountain of potential that could be explored with Jey the character, which is being overused on Jey the superstar. In my opinion, he was at his best when he was involved with the bloodline, because that's where we got to see this broken three-dimensional character, which made every segment interesting on a storyline basis. Meanwhile, now all that effort is being put into making Jey a yeet guy who's here to say his catchphrase and make his entrance. Some of it was hinted at when we saw Gunther's ambush on Jimmy and how Jey was dealing with it, but it's never been fleshed out. Don't get me wrong. The guy oozes charisma, and his every appearance is a treat to watch, but I strongly believe that he can be so much more than just that. What's your take on this? My take on this is your exact final sentence. What made Jey so incredibly popular over the course of the bloodline was not just that he showed multidimensions as a character, but that we saw his potential. What is potential? What you just said. I strongly believe that he can be so much more. We saw the potential. What happened when he was chasing the Intercontinental Championship and we all loved him? We saw the potential. What happened when he was hinting at being a world champion and we all loved him? We saw the potential. And this is a greater statement about something that's been thematic throughout this entire episode, which is fans wanting their favorite wrestler to have a belt. What happens when this person that you love, because they have potential, reaches their potential? Now the thing that you love about them isn't there anymore because they reached it. Whether they do good or bad almost doesn't matter because you loved them because they had potential. But once you reach your potential, by definition, you no longer have potential. You have the results. So I think in the case of Jey Uso, it's not a matter of, he didn't show enough personality as champion. Oh, he's just the yeet guy now. Number one, just the yeet guy. That's like saying, I don't know, Coco Beware had all these sides to him, but like Hulk Hogan, he was just the Hulkamania guy. Yeah. The guy that people pay money to buy a ticket to see. That's Jey Uso. They pay money to buy a ticket because they know Jey Uso's on the show. Then they go to the merch booth to buy a shirt that says Yeet because they know Jey Uso's there. Then they try to be a part of his entrance. Then they ask him to do his entrance twice. Then they do. I mean, this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. This is pro wrestling. But I think that it's more about maybe take the title off and rebuild so that people go back to seeing him as somebody with the potential. Because when somebody walks out wearing the World Heavyweight Championship and you're like, well, I like him because of the potential that he has. You can't have potential and the WWE Championship. You cannot have potential and be the World Heavyweight Champion. Potential for what? You're already the World Heavyweight Champion. That's it. So I think that's what it is ultimately. Jacob writes in, I acknowledge you, my OPTC, and I hope the fam is doing well. You have no idea. This family is doing so well. Incredibly well. Longtime fan of the show and first time writing in, so I wanted to hit you with a lesser asked question. What are your thoughts on the Sami Karrion storyline coming off of the backstage promo that happened a few weeks back? Look, a lot of people are saying that they want Sami Zayn to turn heel and for Karrion Kross to be a part of that. I do not want Sami Zayn to turn heel. I don't think Sami Zayn should turn heel. I think he's a very good babyface. I think people will cheer him. What I would like to see happen is Sami Zayn goes to the King of the Ring semifinals, loses. Karrion Kross points out that the reason that Sami lost is because he didn't listen to him and starts bullying Sami Zayn, and it leads to a rivalry between Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross. I would far prefer to see a rivalry between Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross, with Sami as a babyface and Karrion Kross as a heel, than to see Karrion Kross convince Sami to turn heel, and now what? Karrion Kross is the leader of this group that Sami Zayn's a part of. Like, it doesn't feel thought out. But the idea of Sami as a big-time babyface and Karrion Kross as a big-time heel, that I like. That's where I would like it to go. But good question. All right, last email of the day. John writes in, I acknowledge my OPTC. That's why I'm reading your email. First, I have to respond to that one email about you spoiling Raw for the guy who went on YouTube. Okay, I don't know. I don't want to attack people. Second, but he's saying I was right. Of course I was right. Second, I can't take care of people individually, okay? I try to take care of the group. That's what I try to do. Second, I'm fascinated by listen to last week's email segment. Secondly, I'm fascinated by WWE's current mixing of behind-the-scenes action into story. It really ramped up with the road to WrestleMania 40, and now can be seen in instances like R-Truth coming back to the company. In both instances, it's hard to tell what was planned and what was a pivot. A lot of this is based off of internet chatter, and there's a ton of internet chatter around TKO and how they only care about money and are going broke. Who's going broke? TKO? I mean, there's like stock reports that tell you exactly financially how TKO is doing. Pretty good. And they're responsible for cutting all these wrestlers, making them huge bad guys. And then I heard CM Punk mention TKO on the air. Everything counts. So I'm wondering if there's a potential storyline with TKO as the authority. No. Look, here's the thing. I get where you're coming from, right? And I think that you're seeing internet stories play out, like I said earlier, in people like LA Knight saying this is, what was the exact quote? He said, I wrote it down. LA Knight saying this is the WWE establishment, right? Making reference to the fact that this is a narrative that is happening on the internet. But the idea of making a publicly traded company the bad guy, you can't do it. I mean, you just can't, because shareholders are not as cognizant of wrestling storylines as the rest of us are. We'll do one more email. This seems very text heavy. Okay. Julio writes in. Hi, Sam, fellow Dom guy here. I need your take on Dominic Mysterio's IC Championship run. It's the best I've ever seen. And I watched them all. One of the first matches that I ever saw that made me go, oh, I like wrestling matches. I don't just like over-the-top characters. Was when I was 7 years old. And I watched Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental Championship, and Bret Hart took it off him at SummerSlam 91. I said, that's the best, and then I said, Bret Hart's the best Intercontinental Champion ever until April 20th. And then I realized Dominic Mysterio is the best ever. He was killing it at Worlds Collide and Money in the Bank, but WWE is making him look weak. Well, okay. Pinning him, the only champ in last Raw's Fatal 4-Way, was brutal. Okay, is this a work for a Finn Balor betrayal, or are they botching Dom's potential? Talk me off this ledge. Love the podcast. Keep killing it. Look, Julio, Dom is a heel. Here's the thing about Dominic Mysterio. He is low key a great wrestler. I mean, and they had him show all kinds of dominance in his match with Octagon Jr. at Money in the Bank. And he did great in the audience at the AAA show, Worlds Collide. I mean, go back a year and watch his stuff as the NXT North American champion. You can watch all of his NXT stuff, as a matter of fact. You can see Dom is a good wrestler. They gave him a huge win in a Fatal 4-Way nonetheless at WrestleMania to win the Intercontinental Championship. Dom is, not only is he a heel, he's one of the best heels in the business right now. So much so that he's not going to be able to be a heel that much longer. But when you're that good of a heel, you should. If you're a great heel, you can lose a lot of matches and it never matters. If you are a great heel, nobody is counting how many times you lose. They're paying to see you lose. Dominic should have been the one who got pinned in that Fatal 4-Way, because the job of the match is not to make Dominic the heel, who is not a monster heel. We're not talking about the Canadian Earthquake. We're not talking about Big Van Vader. We're talking about Dominic Mysterio. His whole gimmick is that he's a weaselly heel. So he should lose matches. It literally does. He's Teflon to these losses. He could lose every match for the rest of the year. He'd still be the GOAT. It wouldn't do anything. So I think you have to really, you can't, you can, you should. Look, if you're a wrestling fan, of course, you should go in and say, I just want my favorite wrestler to win all the time. Of course, that's, But if you want to get analytical about this, if you want to start digging through it, that's not a real thing. That's not a conversation I'll have. You know what I mean? Yeah, if you want to get into the psychology of this whole thing and what people's roles are on the show, it's what Dominic's role is on the show. I think eventually he'll be a babyface. I think eventually, like I said last week, we'll see Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan turn babyface against Finn Balor and Roxanne Perez. And maybe Finn Balor and Roxanne Perez will win at first because they're building heel heat. But eventually it'll be Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan that get that huge win. When Dominic's a babyface, he'll be winning all the time because that's what people are buying tickets to see. That's the psychology of pro wrestling. So no, if you look, here's the thing. I think too many of us look at results on paper and go, that guy's getting buried. We go, LA Knight didn't win the Money in the Bank briefcase. He's buried. We go, Dominic got pinned in the Fatal 4-Way. He's buried. We go, whatever we do, they're buried. Instead of watching the show and, number one, paying attention to how the audience reacts. But number two, and even more importantly, paying attention to how you feel, not what you think. How do you feel? When Dominic Mysterio comes to the ring, everybody boos him or cheers him. Either way, it's loud. People react when Dominic Mysterio comes to the ring. When Dominic Mysterio comes to the ring, I would imagine that you, in your body, in your soul, you feel like, oh, this is a thing. This is a thing I should see. That's how you know the job's getting done. If somebody is being buried, when they come to the ring, you're disinterested. That's what it is. Oh, they were getting cheered. Now they're booed. They're buried. No. If somebody is buried, if somebody is not succeeding, if somebody is being botched, then the vibe that is radiating off of them should be raw and utter indifference. And that's not happening with Dominic Mysterio. It's not happening with LA Knight. That's not happening with any of these guys. So I think that is something that you should consider. But no. You have nothing to worry about with Dominic Mysterio, clearly. They just gave him WrestleMania. I mean, come on. I appreciate the email, though. And I appreciate you looking out for our man, Dominic Mysterio. We should always look out for our 20-year vet, Dominic Mysterio, at all points in life. And I appreciate that you're a Dom guy, too. I appreciate all you guys hanging out. Don't forget to scoop up your tickets for the live Not Sam show. SummerSlam week, notsam.com for tickets. And we will see you right back here. Subscribe across all audio platforms. Apple, Spotify. Leave reviews, leave ratings. We're on the SiriusXM app as well. YouTube. YouTube.com/NotSamWrestling. And we'll see you very soon. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about. Maybe an emergency pod. I don't know. We'll find out. The only way you'll find out is if you're subscribed. So keep listening, keep watching, and we'll talk again.